Welcome back to ET with GOTB. Last minute goals, extra time, fingertip saves. The FA Cup semi-final weekend was seriously dramatic. Let's get into it. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. Well, what a weekend of football we had, including a couple of WSL catch-up games, which is just mainly Arsenal. But from a drama perspective, it was all saved for the FA Cup semi-finals. And we've got a pair of finalists.
We do, and of course I wasn't there for it.
No,
so
obviously.
I missed it all. I've watched it back, don't worry.
So have I, inadvertently. We are going to run through all of that, and then obviously you went to the under-17s again, so you can give our listeners a bit of an update on what the situation is in terms of England's hopes at the Euros, etc. Plus, you're going to give us a player of the week and a standout moment.
Yes.
Okay, good. That sounded an awful lot more confident than you usually do.
Don't
follow it up.
You missed the eye roll.
Oh.
I just gave the camera.
Before we get into that, though, this is your weekly reminder to make sure you're subscribed wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening to this podcast. Leave us a comment. What did you make of all the action? Who do you think is going to win the FA Cup? And of course, make sure you're following us across all of our socials as well. We're at Girls on the Ball on everything. Okay, FA Cup semi-finals, in case you were living under a rock or, like Sophie, you were in Northern Ireland.
Different country.
Liverpool 2, Brighton 3. O'Sullivan, Olsen, Venegas, Haley and Nordam with the goals there. Chelsea 2, Manchester City 3 after extra time. Cuthbert, Kerr, Fowler and Shaw with the brace. We'll kick off with Liverpool, Brighton. To be honest, I think both games were actually pretty tough to call. I think part of us were hoping Liverpool would do it purely for the kind of story out of the whole thing, but then there's a big story with Brighton doing it. It's their first time getting to a cup final. They've gone through a lot as a team as well this season, so it was really difficult to call this one, and it delivered.
It did. It certainly delivered. Liverpool hit the ground running with their 2 goals. Fast start. I think Denise O'Sullivan was excellent as well. And yeah, they just got their press right in those opening stages. They were all over Brighton. Brighton had a few chances, but the intensity was, I think, with Liverpool, they came out with a point to prove and they were determined to get to that FA Cup final. And I think the nature of they went 2-0 up and it wasn't that long after since they conceded.
Yeah.
And I think that just gave Brighton that little glimmer of momentum and a little glimmer of hope in the game, that they could maybe turn it around. And when you're just 2-1 down, anything can happen. And Brighton came out in the second half. They were front-footed, they were aggressive. It was like they'd been, I don't know, they'd used at half-time.
A rocket lit up them.
Yeah, not so much that, but I think they just used it to really understand that the next 45 minutes would kind of determine their FA Cup destiny, as it were. And this was a chance that they couldn't see fall by the wayside. You don't get many chances like this to get through semi-finals. Liverpool have had 2 now, and they've been crushed at both times. But I think for Brighton, they kind of had that, and they have so much experience in terms of like Fran Kirby in that squad. Someone like Ndozie as well at the back. Has done a lot on the world stage in terms of what she's done with Nigeria and what she did at Paris FC as well. So you've got little bits of experience within that squad, and they seem to be kind of meshing together at a really nice time. And when you think about making changes, impact from the bench, I know comms were like they have depth to put on.
Yeah, I don't remember who said it, but they said both sides had massive depth. And
neither side have massive depth, and the fact that Dario Vidicic made changes for this game is because he rested players for the Arsenal game in that first half last week. So he did bring in the likes of Fran Kirby, who didn't start against Arsenal. So there were fresh legs in that sense. But there's not a lot of depth in both camps. Liverpool certainly, when they lost O'Sullivan and Holland as well, in the second half, I think.
Yeah.
That's when everything went a bit south for them. Those two are such key players for them in terms of their energy, their drive forward, the way that they attack the game. And when you take them out of that side, Brighton suddenly had much more control of the ball and the momentum. And I think just making that substitution from the bench turned out to be inspired from Dario. You don't expect probably to spend 7 minutes on the pitch and score the goal with pretty much the winning goal to send your team to Wembley with pretty much the last kick of the game. But yeah, no, a big moment for Nadine Nordam, I think, as well. Her first goal for Brighton, and to have that moment with the fans as well who travelled, very special.
What a goal it was as well.
Yeah,
an absolute
so
bloody rocket into the back of the net.
I will question the defending, but it doesn't take anything away from the strike.
No, we won't. No, but I, you know, what you said there about O'Sullivan and Holland, I felt like Brighton got back to 2-2, and then Liverpool kind of had almost felt like they'd ridden that wave and kind of found their footing a little bit again, to the point where you were like, actually, now I'm not sure who's going to get the winner. Because initially I thought with Brighton had the momentum in that second half. They came out pressing high, pushing Liverpool back, and I think Liverpool were struggling a little bit with that, and deservedly they got the equaliser. But then they just seemed to have ridden that a little bit, and you started seeing maybe some chances come. And then when they went off, and I think both were injuries, Denise's knee, Kerry Holland, I think, had a dead leg or something.
The girl can't have much more strap to her.
There was no more leg to strap, so they were like, you know what, maybe you should just come off, because it's not looking good. You know, Chillag came on, Mia Enderby came on. There was a moment towards the dying stages of the second half where Chillag had got the ball free in the top of the box. It was her, Mia Enderby, and the goalkeeper, and one Brighton defender. Enderby was completely wide open in the box, and Chillag decided to go for it herself.
It's just that decision making piece, and you know, Chillag's still new to the league, still young and everything, and I think that's the piece with Liverpool, is that they're really in like a first window rotation of what is going to be Gareth Taylor's team going forward. He didn't really have much of the summer, so this was his first window, and then you're building from that. I think also it just showed how tiring like giving up a 2-0 lead actually is, and not there's a physical side of it, and that's tiring as well. But I think more than anything, it's the mental stuff that drains you completely. And while you find yourself maybe having a second wind after that equaliser goes in, finding your footing again, should have had a penalty in my book, I think. But equally, it probably explains why in the final minutes you aren't tracking your players as much or sticking as tight to them in the box. It's mentally exhausting, and I think we saw that in both games.
Yes. Should there have been a penalty for Liverpool?
Yes.
Okay. We don't need to debate that. No, but I do think the momentum definitely swung Brighton's way in the second half. And the thing is, I don't want to have that kind of recency bias where you watch the second half and then just go, oh, they completely deserved to win it. I thought Liverpool were very good in the first half, Brighton were very good in the second half, and they took their chances, and they, you know, kept their foot on the gas right to the end. There were chances for both sides at the death, and Brighton took theirs. And as you said, that substitution, I was watching Fran Kirby going off, and I was like, oh wow, you know, if this goes to extra time, to be fair, she probably couldn't do a full game on extra time. So that kind of inspired change, and that's a little bit of a theme, I think, across this weekend, was the inspiration of substitutions.
I did think that making, like, even if they hadn't scored that winner in the 95th minute, I thought that they looked the fresher of the two, which is strange because they played in midweek. But I think they had more energy in those closing moments. I was looking at the game and I was thinking, Liverpool struggling here, like they're struggling.
They're on the ropes a bit.
They're tired, they're exhausted, they're not making the right decisions, and I still think Brighton would have won it in extra time had it gone that way. Yeah.
I'm just looking here at the BBC article, and I'm guessing player of the match is voted for by fans.
Yes.
Because they've given it to Nordam. Which obviously, yes, got the winning goal, but, you know, lads, come on, she was on the pitch for 7 minutes.
TNT or Channel 4, one of the two, gave it to Kiko Seka, and I thought she was brilliant.
I was thinking about her when I was watching the game, and like, she causes such a headache for a goalkeeper because she's playing out in the wing, so she comes in from width, but you know she can score on your inside post. She is such a weapon of a foot that, like, it must be so hard as a goalkeeper to kind of, where you're positioning yourself, normally you're looking at a player going, well, they're not going to try and put it there. Kiko Seka can, and it just must be such a headache. Falk made a great save from Seka, she went across goal and she got her fingertips to it, but it was a good game.
I really want to shout out Madison Haley as well. Yeah. Obviously got the equaliser for Brighton, but like, she's had a bit of not a rough season, but she's been played in a lot of different positions and maybe hasn't had the output that some people would expect of a forward player. But she's been moved around quite a bit, had to do a lot of different jobs, as it were. And I think she's starting to look really, really settled. She's got several goals in the last
4 and 5 or something.
And I think she's really putting herself up there, that when she is put in the right positions, she can really impact that side of the pitch really well. And she provides so much like cover and work rate, and she does the kind of dirty side of the game really, really well. The stuff no one wants to talk about. But I think now you're seeing her output at the other end of the pitch is really key.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations, Brighton, making history. Okay, well, all the excitement wasn't done there. Chelsea 2, Manchester City 3. And there was just, I had a niggling feeling that this was even... I had somewhere to be, basically, yesterday evening. So it just was absolutely natural then that it went to extra time.
Of course.
Even though at the 86th minute and 2-0 up, I was going to message my aunt and be like, okay, we don't need to worry, it's not going to go to extra time.
I went into interviews with the under-17s after the match. And I was talking to one of them about the game and showed them the score as 2-0 and having a chat about that. And then I came back to the car after I finished and I was like, what on earth happened? Like, it was 2-0, 5 minutes to go, and then it turns around so quickly.
How gutting, though, for Chelsea to be 4 minutes away from a final. To be... Commentary said cruising. I wouldn't necessarily say cruising, but they were much more comfortable in the game. They were the better side for the majority of that 90 minutes. And, you know, when you're 2-0 up with 5 minutes to go, yeah, you probably are cruising, I guess, to a degree, because you're like, okay, this is going to be grand now. We've got this sewn up. And they started really well, forcing Chiara Keating into a super save within the first minute. Alyssa Thompson racing down an absolute like rocket of a shot. You know, there was a couple of saves she had to make in the opening couple of minutes. Chelsea really came out going, okay, we're going to put this to you. You beat us heavily last time we played each other. Yeah, but I mean, do you think the last time they played each other, you know, Chelsea came out like front-footed.
But I think they also took advantage of the fact that it's probably been a weird week in terms of preparation for Manchester City. A lot of celebrations, of course, and I don't mean that in the sense that they're not like preparing for the game, but I think mentally that can have an impact as well, because you've just won the thing you've been striving for all season, probably without planning to win it at that point, because you weren't always going to have to you wouldn't be relying on Arsenal to drop points necessarily. You would think you still had to do the job yourself, and suddenly that weight is off, and you've got like this kind of mental thing to deal with as well. So it maybe took them a little bit of a minute to get into. It's
funny though, because we all said like it'll be so much better for City going into this FA Cup semi-final to have won the league, because then they don't have to have like one eye on the game at the weekend, because they can put all their focus on this. And now it's like, well, maybe the fact
I think if they'd won it
earlier
last weekend, so if they'd managed to win it at Liverpool, then it would have been. I think it was just that proximity of like Wednesday night and winning the league. Obviously Thursday, a lot of different things were happening. Bunny Shaw was down at the Women's Football Awards. You know, there's a whole lot of celebrations going on. And then to regroup and refocus for such a big game as well, it just changes the narrative of a week a little bit.
Yeah.
Not that it should affect, they're all professionals, and as they showed, they can fight back. But I do think maybe that first little bit of the game was a little bit of a hangover.
And, so, you know, Chelsea took the lead early on. Erin Cuthbert with a good goal. A good strike. Chiara Keating had set herself, and then it took that deflection last minute, so it wasn't much she could do about it. But Chelsea could have probably gotten a couple more and been a bit more comfortable. They had a goal ruled out for the ball going over the line, and it's hard to be really conclusive.
There's no conclusive angle,
which is annoying, but it didn't feel like it fully went over the line.
Yeah, but you can never know with that thing. But but at the end of the day, the whistle blew as she kicked the ball. And so even if it come back and been seen that it had been in the line, nothing would have happened, because basically the game stopped. So whether you think Chiara Keating is to get into that ball or not, she stops when the whistle blows.
Okay.
And so she makes no action to try and...
I hadn't seen that.
She'd literally gone like this.
Yeah.
I think it was... it's one of those really tight calls, and I think they happen in games. And if we want to argue about it, then we get into the stage of like contradicting all the arguments against VAR, about like arguing about every minute detail. It might have crossed the line, it might not have, like we don't have a conclusive view of it.
I think what's probably frustrating for Chelsea was they felt they had a goal there. They then had one ruled out for offside. It was offside, but it was a very tight offside. It was offside. So they, you know, that kind of emotion of going yes to being like to be yes to being you know, and feeling like you've got the game, you've got it in your clutches, and then it's taken away. It must have been frustrating, and it did take them until the 59th minute then for Sam, who'd put the ball in the back of the net twice already, to actually get her deserved goal. I thought she played very well.
She was very good. She was on a mission, I think, while she was on the pitch, and That could be her second last performance in a Chelsea shirt, which seems mad to even comprehend. And she's definitely been going out on a high. She scored, 5 in the last 4? She's making her statement and actually probably asking a few questions of the decision-making in terms of personnel. I think, obviously, we have so much conversation around Bunny Shaw and her future this week. She's not much younger than Sam Kerr. A little bit younger, but not much. I find it... I'm going to go on my little rant here.
Okay.
I find it absolutely mad. And I'm not a business person. I don't really... I'm not very clued up on football business in terms of transactions and stuff. But for me, when you're looking at the transfer window this season and you have Sam Kerr, Katie McCabe, Beth Mead, Bunny Shaw, all available potentially on frees, that makes no business sense to me from a club point of view, just from a very basic point of view. Bunny Shaw is the best striker in the world right now. Sam Kerr still, as she is showing, still has it and will be back to her very best very soon, I think, if she's not already. You've got Katie McCabe, who when she plays for Ireland, and actually this year
it's been incredibly
important for Arsenal.
As has Beth Mead.
They're all performing at the highest level, and should they qualify for the World Cup next year, will all be in their teams for the World Cup next year. And for me, the fact that clubs are just losing them on free transfers, I don't understand how you start making money in this game for players and assets if you aren't going to be putting prices on their heads. And I think I was saying it to you, last year, obviously Beth Mead was they'd accepted a bid from London City. Beth didn't want to go, which is well within her right not to do it. But surely they could offer her maybe a 2-year contract extension or a year contract extension with the understanding that she probably was going to leave this summer, and then you get money for her. This whole running down of contracts for the best players in the world, and of which Bunny Shaw is one of them, just is madness.
But especially when we're talking about the growth of the game and we're trying to, clubs are trying to get profit and to kind of have better numbers ticking over every season and to increase the revenue coming into the club, that is one arm of how you could get money in. You think back to SK Brann when they lost Signe Gobset. Didn't she sign...
She signed a contract
a year before,
a year or
something?
6 months before. And I think both of them knew.
Schroeder.
I'm pretty sure
it's
the same situation at Hacken for Schroeder. They sign new contracts knowing that they're probably going to go within a year or 6 months.
But their club will get money for them.
But the club will get money for them. And I think clubs really need to start thinking more financially sensible about these things, because it is a business. It is, as we've seen in the men's game, a way of getting a lot of money in, or actually even just replenishing your funds for the next buy to come along. And for Bunny Shaw to go on a free at 29 years old when she is hitting 20 plus goals in all competitions in a season, is utter madness.
Shall we go back to the game?
Yes, sorry.
Because that was something I wanted to chat about later in the episode, but never mind.
I went
Obviously, Shaw, of course, was the story because she got 2 goals, which ultimately won Manchester City the game. But the impact of the substitutes that came on, a couple of players I want to shout out. Mary Fowler coming on, getting that goal. What a goal as well. Drilled into the bottom corner. Didn't let that kind of passage of play die, if you like. Really making an impact as soon as she came on. With the 85th, 86th minute, she scored that goal. Iman Benny, I thought, was super when she came on, running down every single ball. Lauren Hemp ended up in left back, took a ball flush to the face as well, got over with that bashed nose. There were players putting in shifts, and there were players putting in shifts on both sides. I think we had Niamh Charles and Lucy Bronze as a centre-back pairing at one point. There was players having to be shifted around. We're at the latter stages of the season, you're going into extra time. It really felt like both teams were absolutely grafting.
I think Sonia, and by her admission, I think you could tell in the post-match, got things wrong a bit tactically with her substitutions. And when you contrast that with the substitutions that Andre Yeglert's made,
he went attacking, understandably. He had to.
In terms of bringing Mary Fowler on,
for Gina.
And I just think that on the day that was probably the difference between the two in a way as well as City's newfound champions mentality of being able to turn results, always believing, turning games around. I wrote a piece for us this week about the 5 games that defined City's season, And it made me realise as I was going through all of the games how many like last-minute goals or late goals they got to win them the title, and that's been the key this season of them turning their. I think it was Viv Miedema and Alex Greenwood who talked earlier in the season about having that mentality shift, and that's been where the key part is, being able to believe in yourselves and keep going until the very end that you're going to find a goal.
And Shaw is one of those players that absolutely believes and backs herself, no matter how many opportunities she wasted yesterday, and she did. And, you know, many players in that situation might think, oh, it's just not going to happen for me.
She keeps going.
Not Bunny Shaw, because she knows that it will come. And we've talked about the fact that her conversion rate last time I checked was 17%, which seems really low for the person who's at the top of the scoring charts. But it's not, because she creates that many. It's going to come. And, you know, I think
I like the way she put it in her post-match with TNT. She was like, I woofed the first opportunity.
I woofed it.
I woofed it. So the second one that came, what you counted 13 seconds later, she wasn't going to woof again.
So that was the winner. The equaliser was one she received with back to goal. She had two defenders on her, and she still managed.
No right to put that ball.
No right to put that ball in the back to goal, and on the tight post as well. It wasn't like it was a really open part of the goal. Like, that in itself was, you know. And then she's back defending off the line at corners and balls in. Like, it just, yeah. I mean,
she's superb.
Yeah, but I do want to give shout outs to the Mary fella, who obviously hasn't had a lot of game time. Imam Benny, young player coming on, you know, putting in the tackles. Lauren Hemp at left back. I thought Jade Rose did well at times. I know they conceded, but like, yeah, I just felt like even, and Chelsea, to be fair, who I thought played really well for the majority of that game, it just felt like a bit of a slugfest. And yeah, incredible that Manchester City were able to turn around in the manner they did. Yes, it was something like 15 seconds between the header she woofed and then Hannah Hampton trying to play it out fast, and it ended up straight to Yui Hasegawa, and 15 seconds later Bunny Shaw made sure that she put the ball completely out of reach of Hannah Hampton. So it means that it is going to be Brighton versus Manchester City at Wembley on the 31st of May for the FA Cup final, which is super exciting. Okay, there was some WSL midweek action / weekend, as we said, pretty much Arsenal and Arsenal. Arsenal, it was Brighton 1, Arsenal 1, Tsunoda and Monum. Am I pronouncing that right? And Monum with the goals, and Aston Villa 0, Arsenal 3. Russo with a brace, and Monum again getting on the score sheet. The draw, as we said, midweek meant that City won the league. So they were all together at the training ground watching it together, which I can't imagine having to watch that game, because as has been typical Arsenal over the last few games, they left everything till the second half, until late, and they threw everything on the kitchen sink at Brighton, and they could not get the ball in it. And I can only imagine what it was like for Manchester City to actually sit and watch that. It must have been really tough. So that meant that City won the league. They have that game now. They can play against West Ham. Be interesting to see how that goes and where their heads are at. And then the win against Aston Villa for Arsenal confirmed that they will get Champions League football next season. All that's really left to play for is who comes second, who comes third. So who gets straight into the group stages, and who has to go through the pathway, essentially. So it's between them and Chelsea.
Qualify, yeah. So basically, you want to qualify automatically, because then you don't have to start your season a bit early.
Of course. We are going to do a league wrap up when it's done after next week, where we can talk a bit more and you know, Manchester City, about their season and the other teams. I want to look at kind of maybe good highs for each team, maybe some lows for each team, who their best players were, etc., etc. And then, yes, we will do, after the FA Cup, we'll have another one. We'll have one after the playoff. There's actually a lot more football. You think you're coming to the end of the season, and you're really not. There are a few announcements that have come from Arsenal today.
Can I just talk about Aston Villa first?
Go on, you can talk about Aston Villa.
I think it was really important for Arsenal to get back to winning ways. That was the main thing. Not take that last 2 points to get European football down to the last two games, because you start to put pressure on yourself.
Yes, because they've got two more to go.
I think the game against Brighton, that first half, was very much a hangover from the loss to Lyon in the Champions League, and the kind of mental side, the psychological side of that defeat. And they need to get that out of their system. And there are some very, very tired bodies out there. They've played a ridiculous amount of football this year. When you think about their first block of the season, where they had the Champions Cup,
game
so they were playing every 3 days for about 6 weeks. Then they all went. Yes, they've had these 3 week international breaks, but all of them pretty much are on international break, and being like really heavily involved in qualifying for their countries, and then they come back and they have to do it all again. So I think there's a lot of tired bodies out there, a lot of rest is needed. But to perform like they did against Aston Villa, who have got at them in the past, they drew earlier in the season. Obviously, we remember that game at the end of the last season. We know what they can do in the transition. Aston Villa are a very, very fun football team to watch in an attacking sense. And if they can get the defensive structure of their game right,
that's going to say,
I think
that's fun to watch defensively.
But I think they're going to be fun. Like they continue going to grow under Natalia. It's just that defensive side. They've also had big injuries that have been a problem. You know, they've got a makeshift backline at the moment. But for Arsenal to come through that, for Alessia Russo to play the way that she did, that link up with Mornham was brilliant all the way through it. When they were on the pitch, and I just think it was crucial to get that over the line now, because they've got Everton on Wednesday and Liverpool at the weekend, and you just didn't want to leave it to that last section.
Speaking of Aston Villa, actually, Lucy Staniforth signed off her Aston Villa career, got to say goodbye at home at Villa Park, and there was a lovely guard of honour for her before the match for both teams, which was very nice to see, and she did manage to get on the pitch as well. And then I think Rachel Daly made her 100th appearance for Aston Villa.
Lucy is retiring at the end of the season, and she's at Barclays WSL. Oh, actually, just a WSL OG. It wasn't Barclays then. A WSL OG. She's been there throughout, and maybe hasn't had the career at times that she wanted. Such a talented player, but injuries really, really hampered her. And that back-to-back ACL injury, really stalled her momentum a bit. But to fight back from that, to get to the World Cup with England, to make an appearance at the World Cup in 2019, and then to be included in that training group in 2023 and go out and do the opening couple of weeks, I think it's, a real tale of resilience to be able to keep fighting back and represented 7 sides in the league. You know,
wow.
She's had an impact across the game everywhere. So I think, massive flowers to her.
Absolutely. As I was going to say, Arsenal have announced today Victoria Pelova, Laia Codina and Beth Mead will be leaving at the end of the season. Understandably, a lot of the headlines have been around Beth Mead, who spent 9 seasons at Arsenal, done 265 games, something like that. Has obviously had a massive impact on Arsenal. It can be weird not to have Beth Mead at Arsenal.
There are some players that are just so adjacent with their clubs in terms of what you associate with them with. It's it's a real struggle to see her being, playing in another shirt. Although she, of course, was Sunderland beforehand, but I think her journey at Arsenal has been incredible. She came in as a potentially world-class number 9. She had the potential to be. Moved to right wing, became a world-class right winger. Has always grafted for a team, always worked hard, got to the very top of the game. I think if I'd been Arsenal, I'd have done everything to keep her, personally.
Well, I'm intrigued to see where she ends up, and I do hope it's in the WSL, because I'm selfish and I want to see players that I like in the WSL so that I can watch them more regularly. What is left? Under 17s. Can you give us a little update, a quick, brief update as to what's going on? What were the scores during the week, and what does it mean?
So we were at the under 17s on Monday, and we saw them beat Northern Ireland. That was their first group game. They then lost very narrowly to Germany on Thursday, which meant that they went into their final group game needing to beat Norway, because Norway, they had the same goal difference, but Norway had scored more goals. So even a draw wouldn't have done anything, which they got a draw. So they are no longer in the competition in terms of the Euro sense, but they do have an opportunity to get to the World Cup still, and they are in the 3rd place playoff, which the last time I looked likely to be Poland. That might have changed at this point. Poland were playing Spain, but it looked likely to be Poland. So they'll meet on Thursday for the final spot at the World Cup in Morocco this year. Very disappointed, I think, Kerry Walsh was, the head coach, and the players not to have been able to get it over the line. They had a great qualifying, but I think it was just, in the end they were done on goals scored, very narrow margins. They will admit that they didn't perform well enough in the first half against Germany or against Norway.
But they had chances in the second half of both games.
They had chances in the second half of both games, and I think that's that learning point at this stage, is being able to get games over the line. So they're still very young. They're under 17s. It's a bunch of 16 and 17-year-olds. Very first tournament for England. The under 17s last year didn't qualify, So this is kind of their first action of under-17s football. So it's all a learning process. That's the main key of it. It's about development and learning. You want success, of course you do. You want to win, and that serves you well. But if they can come away with a World Cup spot and get to go to Morocco in the autumn to play,
I'd love that.
the different kind of opposition and have that experience against different countries in the world in a different place and be away from home, that's going to do so much for them going forward. When you think about the 2024 cohort that went to the Dominican Republic, the likes of Layla Harbert, Lola Brown, those kind of players, Erica Parkinson, who are all starting to make moves, yes, some quicker than others at points, but it's all that experience, and those players are going to be playing at the 20s in August as well, in September as well, under 20 World Cup. To have those experiences under your belt as you're striving for senior football, I think is absolutely key.
And putting my selfish hat back on again, I'd quite like to go to Morocco. All right, can you please quickly give me your player of the week?
Okay, so this is hard because 2 different competitions. So Bunny Shaw. Can I go WSL and FA Cup? Okay. Bunny Shaw, for reasons previously stated. I just think that, she is a clutch player and she comes up big when she needs to. And yes, as you say, she had chances and probably wasn't on her game at times during that game, but she scores when it matters and she always manages to find a goal, and she's the best striker in the world right now. And then I would also give a shout out to Alessia Russo because she got the 2 goals against Aston Villa, 11 goals this season, 6 assists. That's a really good return, I think. I know Twitter likes to tell me that Alessia Russo isn't a good footballer, but they're wrong. She's a phenomenal footballer, a really complete footballer. And you've got to remember she's been playing half of her games in the 10 this season as well.
That's logic, though, that you're using.
She's flipping between the 9 and the 10, and so her output is obviously going to differ a little bit. But I think she keeps improving with every season that she comes out with.
Yeah.
That turn, that she should trademark that.
The Russo turn outside of her boot.
Like you have the Cruyff turn.
Yeah.
You should definitely have the Russo turn.
The Russo round or something.
One of the most pleasing, satisfied things to see in football, I think. Along with like a Gemma Evans slide tackle.
Yes. Who else? What other players have like trademark moves that you would like? There's the Beth Mead crot, which she hasn't pulled out for a while. But let us know in the comments. Are there players that have like the Sam Kerr leap, like the Salmon Sam? I don't know what you call it, but she leaps so high.
So high.
There's some players that just have like a thing. I mean, even like a diving Bunny Shaw header, but she scores it so many different ways. If you've got any suggestions of what trademarks players should make, do let us know in the comments. I was just going to say on Russo, I tend to listen to ex-footballers and current footballers who talk about players because they tend to know more about what they're talking about.
She is one of the most complete footballers out there.
Cool.
With all of her game.
Yes. Okay, shine a spotlight on...
Oh.
So you could have split these now.
I could have split these.
You could have split them.
What am I going to go for? Let's go for Nadine Nordam. Just because 95th minute winner. Send your side through to the FA Cup final. Her face, she couldn't believe it. And afterwards she was just like this, like, what on earth has happened to me? And I also shout out also Fran Kirby watching the crowd at the end, just for her to get to another FA Cup final as well.
Yeah.
It's pretty special. And you could tell she was like soaking it all in. She was just...
What I liked about the Nordam thing though, like obviously any player who scores a goal is going to celebrate like crazy. But to be a player who doesn't expect to get it, it just makes it all the more kind of like wholesome when you see her being like, what have I just done?
And she has sort of flown under the radar. I think
she's our best assister this season.
Best assister this season, but she's not played, I don't think, all that many games, or she's sort of been in and out of the team. So to have that, but then to have that moment for herself for her first goal to send them to Wembley, I think that's pretty special.
Lovely stuff. Any other business? We've got the final weekend of fixtures coming in. Not much left to confirm. We know who's going down. We know who's won. We know who's doing Champions League. We don't know which order in second and third. That's about all that there is to play for. Arsenal are playing Liverpool. Chelsea are playing Manchester United. We're going to be at West Ham, Manchester City to get a trophy lift.
Yeah. We're also going to be at Arsenal, Everton tomorrow.
Jesus Christ.
I
Arsenal
might
again.
go back to Northern Ireland on Thursday.
You might do.
This is going to be controversial.
Oh, God. Signing off in style.
I know everyone likes final day drama, but I'm actually so glad this year that we have none. I'm so glad it's all done and dusted.
It was.
We can just sort of enjoy the celebrations of a very, very long season.
And a well-deserved win for Manchester City. But yeah, sometimes you're like, we would have had to split if Arsenal had won all their games. Even if we kind of knew that it was most likely going to be Manchester City, we would have had to split just in case. And yeah, that's
And
like, do
you
you remember that
you were threatening to give me a camera, and
Yeah.
I was like, I can't be responsible for that.
Do you
Imagine if I had to shoot a trophy lift? Bloody hell!
It's actually probably easier than shooting players run around because they're just standing in front of you.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Do you remember when Chelsea won it on goal difference, and I was at Manchester United Chelsea, and you were at Aston Villa Manchester City?
Yes.
So we had to split for that, and
Yeah.
then suddenly
we met on the train on the way home.
Chelsea were like 4-0 up, and I was like, I think we know where this is going. So yeah, there is some
And
positives.
it's much nicer to end out the season with you.
Oh God, you big sap. Let's wrap it there. Oh my God. Chat to you all next week.